bronche, that's how we say brunch.
Here's to the ladies who say basic with their lunch.
You want that bochinche?
Paquete con pinche, you know what they said?
Not too busy, glasses clinking.
Aquí en esta mesa se respeta como ñón.
Si la copa está llena, yo te doy la bendición.
So what if we get ratchet?
We from the Bronx.
That's it.
Don't get it twisted.
We be going to Manhattan. Be a queen.
Be a boss.
Ladies who brunch and poppin' off.
Hey, we pop and pop it off. We pop.
All right. The episode's about to start.
What's up, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Ladies Who Bronche. I am Julissa.
What's good, everybody? This is Skittles.
And this week, we have una paisa with us. Zulai, who the fuck are you?
First of all, thanks for having me, guys.
Absolutely. Thank you for coming.
Who am I? That's a really existential question. I am a co-founder of a organization called Medley.
Nice.
And effectively what we do is we function as a cannabis club in New York City where we seek to sort of shape the contours for what cannabis consumption or the culture of consumption will look like in New York once legalization takes place, whether on the state level or on the federal level. Everyone is assuming that something's going to give this year, whether at the state level through the next budgetary process or some crazy like electoral move
Right.
by the Don.
Yeah.
But yeah, so a part of what the Cannabis Club does is we try to provide primarily women and queer folks access to information and quality medicine, because there is a disjuncture for the specific kinds of access to cannabis that people can have. And it's also one of those, I like to think, potentially, not like to think, but potentially one of the last growth industries before collapse. So my partner and I have been trying to build out a team for the past few years and really cultivate some of the people on our teams and the things that they're doing and some of the projects that they're doing that on the side have to do with cannabis, but their projects are much larger in scope. And the things that they're doing, some of them are filmmakers, some people are yoga instructors.
Nice.
Other people are in grad school doing their law thing, things like that. So we really just try to be a platform to help the people that are under us do what they do through cannabis.
That's awesome. And I mean, it's definitely a conversation that's been on the forefront of my mind, especially around this idea of decriminalization and what happens to the folks who are currently serving time for, weed-related crimes. And I am feeling hopeful, despite the fact that things are really fucked up, I'm feeling hopeful that the movements of certain states thus far, restoring certain rights to folks who have been formerly incarcerated, I hope that continues to gain momentum, and I don't have a Democratic pick yet as to who I am 100% backing at this point. And this whole Iowa caucus thing was so crazy, and
yeah, it was a mess.
It was a mess. It was a very, very hot mess, which just kind of like made me delay a little bit more even in that decision making. But like, I am excited to see like whoever does end up in the forefront. I know Bernie has sort of said that within his first 100 days he wants to legalize it throughout all 50 states. I know some of these things sound exciting, but I'm always trying to educate myself as to like what that will actually mean, because it sounds good, like sort of in theory, like fuck yeah, but like how are we actually preparing so that there is equality and equity in this new sort of age of this market. So really awesome to have you in the space. Thanks for the work you do.
Yeah. So Zulai, first thing we want to ask is, when you go out to brunch with your friends, what is your choice drink that you're going to be drinking?
Oh,
your bronche bebida.
Well, when I used to drink, it was always a Belgian style beer. So Duvel,
Nice.
a nice Delirium. You know that
I
brand?
do know Delirium. That's the one with the elephant, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Those beers are no joke. You probably shouldn't be drinking them at brunch time, but that's what I would drink. But now it's either like kombucha or a nice seltzer.
Yeah,
Yes,
which is what we're drinking.
which is what we're
today.
drinking.
We're drinking some
Yes.
seltzer and kombucha.
And kombucha.
Which I swear I'm gonna get into one day eventually.
I feel like the universe is calling us to.
Yeah.
I feel like
Well,
the
they make
universe is calling
alcoholic
us to.
ones.
And so I've heard.
If
So
you need to
I've
be
heard.
weaned in.
Actually, on the episode the last episode that we had somebody drinking kombucha, she spiked it. So, yeah. So when you do go out to brunch with your friends, what is your choice plate?
There's what's the I haven't gone to brunch in so long. The ones with the 2 eggs.
Eggs Benedict?
That shit.
Yeah.
Yes.
That shit.
Yeah.
Before I gave up meat and dairy
Oh.
and things and stuff. But now I'd probably go with like a really bougie avocado toast.
Yeah. We were actually talking about, ironically, again, some avocado toast the other day. Like, you can, like, the price of one avocado toast can buy you, like, avocado toast for a week or longer.
Oh, my
Like,
God.
it's kind of crazy.
Yeah.
And also just, like, this idea that I remember when I was younger, my mom would be like, oh, there's food in the house. You can eat avocado and bread. I would look at her like, are you fucking crazy? Let's go to McDonald's right now. What are you talking about?
I don't know when avocado toast started being a thing that restaurants did. It's like the greatest scam that the New York restaurant industry has ever pulled on us.
Right. Absolutely. And so what was it like going out to eat when you were a kid?
So I grew up in Queens.
Best food capital.
Yeah,
I think
really
on the
great
East Coast.
food with immigrant parents. So we didn't have an opportunity to go out to eat a lot, but when we did, it was always a Latin restaurant, which in Queens you can find literally every country represented on one, like a 2-block radius on Roosevelt Avenue. And God, I don't know if it's like stereotypical, but you had like the patriarchal father, and he would like order for everybody, and it would be like this whole mess of a meal, and it'd be like 5 pounds of chicken, and like the parrilla with like all the parts of the cow, and like 10 pounds of rice, and stuff like that.
Yeah.
That sounds amazing. My fat ass.
Yeah, we used to eat really good, and then as I got older, I like started. I like try to be vegan now, so I always look for like the nearest pho spot or the nearest falafel joint,
Yes.
or whatever. It's not really eating out. I do like, it's not fast food anymore, but
Yeah. But eating out, and it's so funny because, like, to me, going vegan, it's less about, oh, the food's not tasty. I mean, it's like raw, clean foods. Of course, it's tasty, but it's the matter of, like, do I have time to cook it, or am I eating out? And then if I'm eating out, what are my options really? Especially if I'm trying to ball on a budget and not just like splurge on these bougie vegan brands.
If you eat out on a budget and try to do the vegan thing in New York, you go to like the same 5 spots in New York. All the vegans know each other. We're always trying to eat together. But yeah, it's pretty chill.
That's awesome. And so, what is your favorite bochinche topic to talk about over a meal?
My friends. Well, as Latinos, we have like chismes in our blood,
Right.
It used to be politics. It depends on who I'm with. If it's my mother, we're usually talking about her friends. If it's my friends, we're usually talking about politics.
Nice.
I've like recognized that we're like chismosos, and I've tried to like not be that way.
Yeah.
Because I feel like it's kind of toxic sometimes.
Yeah. Oh man. I mean, like bochinche, like there's like the innocent bochinche where it's just like commentary and it's not like really gonna hurt anyone's feelings or anything like that. And then there's like the deep, like people are chismeando and then plotting on like how they're gonna influence a situation, and it becomes this like war table. And everybody's like figuring out how they're gonna like band together to do something. So
what about you guys?
Ooh.
We always talk about sex.
Yeah,
And
we like
boys.
talking about
sex. I forgot about that.
Yeah.
That's our sort of go-to. Because like when everything is said and done, like if you're getting fucked well, that's always like a great silver lining in life. And it's just like, no, but I'm having really fucking great sex. And then it's like, good for you. I know all this other stuff, but you are getting fucked well, and that is a big win.
I feel like such a Scrooge sometimes. Maybe it's just I'm always working all the time, and everyone around me is always just like in love or heartbroken or whatever.
Just fucking like rabbits.
I'm like, oh fuck, man, is sex really like the most profound thing that we're capable of doing right now? It's kind of like, fuck, yeah, it's great, but it's also easy.
Okay.
Yeah.
And not that exciting for that reason. I don't know.
Oh, interesting. See, like for me, I think like a lot of my
Clearly, I'm
sex-
not having sex right
No.
now.
I was just gonna say, I'm like, I think for me, like, it has been that way with certain partners, but when you get a partner that like there is an actual connection with, and it's no longer just about like, all right, well, I'm here, so I better get my rocks off. It's about like you're in a moment, and that moment ensues your hormones, and you get excited by the actual engagement of this person, and that leads to sex. Like that is some awesome fucking sex. If I'm just hitting you up on Tinder and I'm like, all right, hurry up, get it over with, just eat my pussy, bye. Like that for sure is not satisfying, and it's almost like out of habit then that you start fucking and making sure, and then so totally, I think it's a bit of both. It can absolutely be that way. Yeah. Yeah.
Tinder. No.
Do you use dating apps at all?
I do not.
Yeah.
I've been told that I really should. It just doesn't seem like there's any other way to do it anymore.
It
How are you
sucks.
supposed to meet people?
Yeah.
I'm definitely not a fan of the I was going to say the social media. Well, I guess it is kind of social media.
It's kind of like social media.
But it's just difficult because it's almost like there's a plague or a moment. Like, do you remember when like MySpace was out and Facebook was out, but Facebook still wasn't the shit, and then eventually Facebook like blew up and people forgot about MySpace. I feel, and then MySpace became like a really lame platform. I feel
Do
like
you still have access to that?
I think we don't anymore.
I just think it's so funny because when, like, the whole idea of, like, dating websites and apps and stuff came out, I was so against it because I felt like it was a way of, like, giving up on the idea that, like, you're actually going to meet someone in person.
Yeah.
And now it's just become such a part of the dating scene and part of the dating community, especially with, like, Grindr and all these, like, gay dating apps that we have.
Right, right. And so I like when MySpace died out and Facebook became the thing, like there was a certain stigma to MySpace. And so I feel like with the dating apps, like Tinder wasn't always full blown just about sex. Like there were people who were on there and were actually like trying to go on a proper date and stuff like that. And then it just like, I don't know what happened. Other apps started coming out that like marketed it themselves, I can't speak today, as more like, oh, this is for the people who are like anti-apps. This is an app for you. Like, and then like as that continued changing, like now it's hard to find the app that's actually the app that's for dating and not just getting fucked, because that's what it's all about.
Yeah.
So it is very...
Even as being as bold as like being on the train and seeing an ad that says the app that's meant to be deleted.
Yeah.
Like
Hinge.
Hinge. Yeah.
Have you used it?
No, I haven't used it. I'm a strictly Grindr girl. But yeah.
You know your demographic. Good to go.
I know my demographic, I do.
But yeah, sex is always fun to talk about during brunch. All right, so now we're moving into our Cheers to the Ladies Who section, where we shout out dope shit and people doing dope shit.
Yeah.
So you gave us a little light on this film, Disclosure. Can you tell us a little bit about the film?
Disclosure is a documentary film. I think it's making the rounds in some film festival.
Sundance, I think.
Sundance, yeah. It's produced by Laverne Cox,
Yes.
executive produced by Laverne Cox, and what the documentary basically tries to do is it's a project in revisionist history, but in a positive way, where they try to trace back historical representations of trans bodies and characters from the past in positive and negative ways, and tying the thread from the past all the way to now, because in the dominant national narrative, a lot of people are only being exposed to the idea of transness as a very new phenomena. And a part of what this documentary purports to do is just show that that's just not the case.
Right.
So yeah.
Yeah, that's incredible.
Probably something that I'm going to be seeing at some point when it's available to me.
And it says here, so it's directed by Sam Feder, and it's interesting because they have different trans stakeholders in the film who are commenting on, just like navigating through Hollywood and some of the ways in which the representation is good, and then some of the ways in which the representation is problematic. And it's so interesting because as someone who tries to be an ally in all the ways possible, I've sort of had to come to terms with the fact that there's a lot of education I don't have around the trans community in terms of the history behind it. Certainly I don't think it's a new phenomenon. I'm not that silly, but just in the sense of I don't what has been the history of this community outside of Marsha P. Johnson, to just some of the names and talking about Stonewall, but what is the bigger community? And I watched season 1 of Pose, and that was a little taste, but even in watching that, I'm and that's just the nugget of a bigger history and in a specific community in New York, but what was going on everywhere else. And I think that it's so important that films like these are being made, not just for people like me to get educated, but also for people who are trans and need to see that representation and need to have something to connect to, because no one else is giving that education anywhere else.
Yeah,
so.
Yeah.
I think that especially with speaking to Pose and having it come out, I actually had a conversation with my mom one day, and I was like, I want you to watch this because you are someone who lived through this, and I know nothing about any of this. I find that the people that lived through this time where it was the height of the voguing scene in New York, and the trans and AIDS epidemic and all this stuff, and the LGBT community and all this shit. Yeah. They lived through it, and they knew people, and they actually lived through this time, but nobody talks about it, and nobody is actually stepping forward to educate on it. And I think it's crazy that as a 28-year-old man, I have to look to an FX show or actually really try and do my homework to gain access to this history.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think another thing that we were saying before we were recording is that one of the things that they're trying to push back against is the familiar trope of, again, disclosure, the idea that trans people are obligated to disclose the state of their physical genitals right off the bat when they're meeting someone.
Right.
And it, flies in the face from the idea that, everybody has information that they don't necessarily need everybody knowing.
Right.
Yeah. Right. This really also brings to mind the whole Nikki Tutorial situation that just went on, where Nikki Tutorials is this huge makeup artist who has been around for a decade making content. You're talking about this woman has created a career solely based off of her talent. And because of one person having to
threaten to out her. Yeah.
That's why she ended up coming out as trans and stuff like that.
Yeah. And it's really I'm just fuck. When did we become so sinvergüenza? You know what I mean? When did we become so entitled to other people's personal information is really beyond me. And even we had this debate 2 seasons ago, actually. We had a guest, and it was a sort of off-camera, air debate about him feeling it's almost like a lack of respect to me if you can't be honest to me about what you really are. And it's just no, what you're missing is that what I really am is what you're getting. That is who I really am, and so I don't actually owe you, again, disclosure. I don't owe you that disclosure. And he felt very strongly about it, and it's interesting because even in hearing him talk about it, it was almost it was so aggressive, in a way where, and I'm just wow, and I'm just talking about it and you're aggressive. I can't imagine the fear that trans people feel when they are engaging with someone and then that person sort of starts to turn on them and ensue that aggression towards them.
Yeah. And there's also the double-edged sword of the stigma that comes that's leveraged at people who are attracted to trans people.
Yes.
There's a lot of the time some anxiety around social suicide.
Yeah.
So that's another part of the issue around the work of normalizing or some people might call it assimilation.
Right.
There are good and bad things about it, for sure.
Yeah.
And I think tackling some of the fear and sensationalism around it is part of the positive part of that work.
Absolutely, but I'm really glad that this is a narrative that is controlled it's for the community, by the
community,
and not just somebody being like, oh, big money opportunity, let's talk about trans lives, which
Yeah.
often happens sometimes when we're learning about narratives, is the narrative's not being told from the actual community. So I'm really happy to see that.
Yeah, it looks like they had a real production budget too. So.
Yeah, it does. No, for real, it
So
does.
hopefully it's good.
So yeah, cheers to that.
Oh, can I have some?
All right, and now we're moving to our Tuta Loca Es, where we call motherfuckers out for doing the most. Okay, breaking news. Trump was acquitted. I thought OJ was the biggest acquittal of all time. But I think this, no pun intended, trumps it. For real. Like,
oh my God.
What are you guys thinking? I mean, first of all, I'll admit I was not following that trial like day by day and detail by detail because I do not have the time for that shit or the emotional capacity for it. But I knew it was going to end this way, and I'm still tight.
I'm just ready for it to be over.
I'm not surprised.
I just want it to be over. Like, I'm over Trump and everything.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what to say. It's just, I did watch some of the hearings on C-SPAN. They were really long and really boring.
Yeah. Yep.
But I don't know if you guys have ever been to court or sat through a trial and like watched the way lawyers make arguments. It was a interesting study in like performativity, if you will. So like, and it just made me worried about what people were actually like processing when they were watching this, because even though the Democratic side had a strong case, they weren't allowed to bring any witnesses.
Very strong case.
They made that clear that was the case. Trump's lawyers just came in with a bunch of bravado and finger pointing, and I'm not sure that that's what got him acquitted. Like,
Right.
you know, it was the vote went down party lines.
Yeah.
There's just not much you can do about gridlock in the House.
Right. Mitt
But yeah,
Romney.
fuck that guy. I mean, I don't know what else to say.
Mitt Romney actually voted against him, and that was like a big deal. It was literally, I was on the train, I saw the headline, and it was like 20-something minutes ago, and it's like, Mitt Romney, says he'll vote against Trump. And then, like, I'm scrolling down, but, like, I guess however many minutes forward from that, it was like, Trump acquitted. And I was like, oh, okay, so that didn't really... Because I got excited for a hot second. I was like, oh, shit, is there a bunch of these motherfuckers who've been plotting and they've just been waiting until today to be like, boop, guilty motherfucker? No.
I mean, I'm not sure what the significance of it is, but it certainly probably is significant that he broke with party lines.
Yeah. I'm just sort of like, first of all, and like it's interesting how like someone like Mitt Romney, who I don't consider to be a great person or politician.
No, I remember
do you
remember when he was running for president, there was a scandal of a story about a dog, and that's what turned me off with him. There's a story about him road tripping with his family, and he put his dog in a crate on top of his car.
Oh, what the
Rode
fuck?
cross country
Jesus.
with the dog in the crate.
That motherfucker. See, I just like
Oh my God,
the things
that
that
poor
are telling about
baby.
people. You think you just judge people by what they say. It's shit like that lets you really know
Yo.
the
Right,
character.
the fact
of
that
it.
you're just
Like,
That
and
was
what
like-
logic?
Yeah.
Where?
I mean, it's wild what fucking skeletons they come up with during campaign season.
Literally, like it is even like going back to when
Can't wait to hear about like Bernie's prostitute rings.
Well,
or, like, whatever.
Elizabeth, what I was going to say is when Elizabeth Warren accused him of saying that he said that a woman couldn't run for president because she wouldn't win. And then he was like, hey, like that was completely taken out of context. And like, here's all the work I did. Like, after I lost to Hillary, here's how many fucking campaigns and rallies I went to support her. I encouraged
Mitt
you
Romney?
to run. No, Bernie Sanders.
Oh, Bernie.
Bernie Sanders. But, like sort of defending himself because that I guess has been so far the Bernie scandal, is this idea that he didn't believe that a woman could run for president and win. And he's like, but how, if all my actions are saying the opposite of that? Why would I support and encourage you, Eliza? He was like, even back then, I encouraged you to run. Like, at that time, why would I say that? And then...
That's sort of the danger of the way information moves now.
Yeah.
At the rate of chisme.
At the rate of chisme.
Yeah.
Even, and this is like...
And it's... I feel like such an old person now. Like, my opinions are changing around this so quickly. It's going to be interesting to see how an election is executed.
Yeah.
When nobody trusts the technology using being used to count the votes.
One of and that the company that was used to that those electronics, Pete, I forget his last name, but he's the one who funds that company. So somebody who's getting votes counted for him is funding the company that's counting the votes.
Mayor Pete?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And so apparently there was a count that came out, and I think it had Bernie at 24% and Pete somewhere, I think, around 21. And then they, were doing another recount, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, no, Pete actually is ahead of Bernie.
Yeah, yeah.
And then somebody did a ratio of, okay, the non-white votes, so, in amongst the Iowa caucus numbers, the people who voted, people of color, 40% for Bernie Sanders, and then everybody else sort of trailed off in the back. So it's just really interesting.
You think, do black people like Bernie?
I think it depends who you ask. I don't dislike Bernie. I'll tell you what I don't like. I don't like Joe.
Julius, on behalf of black people.
Right, on behalf of all black people in America. Bernie? I really feel that people are sort of split. There are some people who, like Sean King, for example, who a lot of, black folks follow for politics. Like, he's a huge Bernie Sanders
A lot of people
supporter.
don't like Sean King.
I know, yeah. Oh, no. I'm very well aware, right? But this is what I'm saying. So I'm like, there's folks like Sean King who are adamant about Bernie Sanders, and then there's a lot of black folks who are adamant about Elizabeth Warren, and a lot of black women who are like, this is the direction we want to go. And I just don't know, and I'll be honest about my lack of tracking and watching debates, because it's also overwhelming. I think I used to enjoy indulging politics in that way, but because the stakes are so high at this point, watching those things gives me anxiety.
But also, have you watched the production?
Yeah,
it's of the debates in this country? It hurts my eyes.
Yeah, so I say that to say I haven't dug up who's has the biggest platform for communities of color. From what I have heard, though, when I do speak to people, it sounds like the one person who is really focusing their efforts on the rights of people of color seems to be Bernie Sanders. So I always hear his name come up in that gambit. But I just really, my distrust, and I think the Iowa caucus proved this, my distrust in, sort of indulging and really riding hard for a candidate at this point, it feels like wasted energy, because either, the people will speak and will be heard and the right person will get put forth, or the DNC is just going to put forth whoever they want anyway, kind of like what they did with Hillary Clinton. So I'm just kind of all right, let's see who the Democrat is, because I know I'm not voting for Trump already. So, all right, let's get this shit over with. Yeah. And then let's keep it moving. And quite frankly, Andrew Yang, I think, has been really underrated. And the more I learn about him, I don't know if I feel ready for him to be president. But seeing dudes like him, I'm like, the next time around, I need more honest people on the ground.
Yeah, I mean, Andrew Yang is West Coast Chinese.
Yeah.
But a lot of his ideas, I think, are one of the more forward-looking ones.
Yeah.
Bernie's platform speaks a lot to the immigrant communities, and that means a lot to me.
Right.
But Andrew Yang's UBI platform, I think, even though it's not catering to specific demographics, might do a lot more than a lot of other platforms.
Yeah, I think this
is not an endorsement for Andrew Yang.
Yeah. And I was gonna say, and even my thing isn't an endorsement. But I am just interested to see. I would have been interested to see, given the DNC not putting so many rules. I mean, even for the caucuses, there were people who dropped out because of certain rules, and then here comes Mayor Bloomberg is like, boom, I want to participate, and now all these rules get dropped.
He's dropped almost $1 trillion on this, and I haven't seen anything from him.
I saw one ad during the Super Bowl against Trump. One ad, and
was it a Bloomberg ad?
Yeah.
Oh.
And I was just like, oh great, of course he can afford a fucking spot on the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
fuck you. It's really, I'm very passionate about it. I just really, like I said, want to see who's going to be out in the front for the Democratic Party so that we can really like pin that person and be like, listen, motherfucker, right? This is what we need to do as a party right now. I don't have time for any bullshit. We can't fuck around. We need to fucking win this election.
It's going to be an interesting year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Get ready, guys.
I'm just going to throw in my, that's crazy. Because y'all lost me.
Yeah. Politics. I mean, honestly, like, who really knows anymore? Like, even the information we think we know, we don't know. So it's chaotic.
Oh my God. Wait, pass the salt?
All right, and now it's time for our plate of the day. So, Going Green, a conversation around the generational relationship with weed in Black and brown communities. It's a huge thing. I will say off the bat, in my family, weed is a big no-no.
Same.
They are very anti-marijuana. I'm not going to shout out people. There are people in the family who do indulge. I will shout myself out because, okay, mommy, you already know. It's fine. Like, I do use marijuana, and it is very controversial. It is, like, literally so shameful that they don't talk about it. Like, it's almost like they will, like, give me a stare. Actually, at the Super Bowl, like, I saw my mom trying to whiff and smell my hair.
I've literally never seen your mother get that affectionate towards you. I've never seen her get that affectionate towards you.
Was like, oh yeah, my daughter landed her whole nose right on my head and took a deep breath, and I'm like, bitch, you not low. Like, why you trying to smell
like laid on you too, like low-key laid on you, and I was like, I've never seen Eva act this way.
And I was just like, damn, ma, all right. Like, don't make me feel guilty. I shouldn't feel guilty about this. This is something I do. So I suffer from some really fucking serious anxiety. Like, some very, very serious anxiety. And, you know, I used to be a kid who was like, don't do drugs. Weed is going to kill us all. And, like, had all these misconceptions because I totally bought into DARE and all those programs and stuff. And then, like, in high school, it was like a fun thing. And then in adulthood, when I picked it back up, because there was a time period where I just didn't smoke. But when I picked it back up, I started to become a little bit more aware about how I can use it in a more meaningful way than just to be stoned. And so that's really the relationship that I've developed. I've tried CBD. I've yet to have a CBD product that I feel like is making any effect. And I don't know why that is, but I'm not I'm not giving up on CBD. I'm just like really looking to get some recommendations that are things that will help. And I don't know if it's because I smoke a lot of weed.
Well, a few things with regards to the CBD. There's a lot of noise in the CBD industry right now. You can find it at the bodega, you can find it at the 7-Eleven,
right.
And then you have like the higher end retail brick and mortars.
Right.
So yeah, you have to navigate a little bit to find the brands that actually make quality product. But in an emerging market, this is what happens. Everybody like has their startups, and then the ones that stick.
Yeah.
If you want to try CBD, it's actually potent enough. That's usually what the issue is. When they started coming out with CBD products, they weren't potent enough. They were infusing it similarly to what THC levels would be. So like, any stoner, if they eat an edible, would probably tell you 10 to 15 to 20 milligrams is what'll get you going. 20 milligrams of CBD isn't going to do shit. You need to multiply that by like 10. So like 200 milligrams or something. Or else you won't feel anything.
That's good to know, because I feel like I've always, in my consumption of CBD, have been measuring the milligrams as THC, where I'm like, all right.
Yeah,
and for me, usually, edible-wise, it takes me anywhere from 20 to 30 to really, like, get high. So I've always been weary, because I'm like, fuck, one day I'm going to do too much CBD, and it's going to hit me, and I'm going to be like, oh, fuck,
Actually, if you want to try quality CBD, I have my friends, Steve and Wasim. They run a CBD retail in New York called Comeback Daily.
Ooh. That's on 59th Street, right?
So they have one on 59th Street at the Turnstile. They have one in the East Village.
Nice.
And they opened one up in Soho right off of Canal. Also POC owned and operated.
Oh,
so
that's
just go give them some support.
That.
They have like a discovery bar, so you can try all different brands of tinctures to find the one that's right for you. And they also do cool programming. One of our Medley team members is hosting a CBD yoga class at one of their locations tomorrow night. And that's going to be taking place the first Thursday of every month.
Okay.
Lit.
That's actually really lit, and I definitely would want to attend that. Though I am terrible at yoga, I am willing to try it with CBD.
Yeah.
So I want to hear a little bit about what were some of the misconceptions around marijuana that you both heard while you were growing up?
I feel like for me, the biggest one would probably be that is, and I don't know, I consider this not to be true. Maybe you guys can correct me if it is true, that it's a gateway drug to like literally everything else. So like if you were going to smoke weed, then like you were automatically going to want to do cocaine and crack and like all that
Not
other
yet.
shit.
It hasn't happened to me yet.
Yeah, that was one of the old ones. That's not something that like my parents instilled in me, but I guess one of the misconceptions was that it was addictive.
Yep.
Not really. I mean, people do become chronic smokers, but I wouldn't describe it as an addiction.
Right.
I don't know. Most of the misconceptions now, and the fear surrounding it has everything to do with the fact that it was a criminalized commodity, and people had to acquire it through illicit markets. And when you're engaging with illicit markets, it's not really the case anymore in New York today. But if you're engaging with illicit markets with other drugs,
Right.
you just have that much more of a closer proximity to the possibility of violent encounters.
Yes.
And that's what the gateway is. And that's what the danger is. And so when I started smoking weed, or I'm sure kids all over America start smoking weed, their parents are worried that they're going to like start going down the trodden road or whatever. That's usually the fear.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know. I'm a stoner. My brother's a stoner. My brother and I are very different people. And I think, at least in my mother's eyes, we've finally proven to her that weed doesn't make you lazy.
Yeah.
If you're lazy, you're lazy.
Yeah.
That was another misconception.
Yeah.
But one cool thing that I did learn is, you think of that old Dare commercial with the girl that deflated
Yes,
into the
who's
couch.
flat
Yes,
into the
you
couch.
literally, once you said the lazy thing, I thought of the deflated girl. on the
Yeah,
couch.
so what I believe that is you have so much more research going on around cannabis and all the other cannabinoids that you can find in the plant. And what they found was that cannabis doesn't necessarily go stale, but some of the THC molecules will change after a certain amount of time. And so what happens with the THC, if you leave it out for long enough, I'm not sure how long, weeks, months maybe, the THC will turn into THCV. I forget the molecule. That's what makes people lethargic and sleepy and lazy and all that stuff. And so I can imagine 20, 30, 40 years ago when you had a less robust productive sector for this industry. I mean, everybody had like 2-month-old weed.
Right.
And like nowadays, as everybody can attest, this stuff is way stronger and fresher and all of those things.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
I also always feel bad about like when we're talking about like, I guess not misconceptions, but like the treatment of people who were the first people to be like pot smokers. Like I feel like my cousins who indulged and like were unapologetic about it were like ostracized.
Yeah.
And they still kind of have like, just kind of like a certain type of attitude or approach that is given towards them when it comes to just that type of stuff.
Right, because you are that cousin. Like
Yeah.
don't hang out with that cousin. That's the cousin that smokes weed. You smell that shit on them. It's like it becomes this like whole like you have a fucking monster on your back that's gonna like bite them. And I wonder around like what spaces exist right now that are able to do the work to educate not just us in our generation, but the generations after us. Because I think about medical marijuana, for example, and I think about even my parents and they, chronic arthritis, like all these different things that I can then, read an article and hear how there's, medical marijuana or something that's THC infused that can help with these things. And I'm like, I don't even think I could get my dad to work with a CBD tincture or anything. Like, I don't think that I could change their mind because the stigma is so strong. So are there any organizations or places where are educating sort of in that space for that generations? Or what are some ways in which you think the Latinx community could really benefit from sort of refocusing the way in which they view marijuana as a tool or a drug or whatever?
I mean, it's difficult when you talk about Latinos because they're certainly not a monolith.
Right.
And if you're talking about the effects of the war on drugs in the past, the U.S. had, they had their fingers in the whole honeypot of Latin America, and they had very similar but differing results in each country. And I think that trauma definitely came with our families when they came over here. I don't know. I think, our older family members are some of the people that can most benefit from what's happening in this industry. And I've spoken to a couple of brown kids who are in the industry, and they tell me that the way to get them on board is through CBD. I'm so tired of hearing the word destigmatizing, but it's because I'm so in it. I just assume that everybody's okay with it now, but it's really not the case. And so CBD is not the same word as marijuana.
Right.
As you see the above board industry maturing more, it's that aura of legitimacy in an above board market that's going to make them less afraid.
Yeah.
But then you also have, the issue of like whether they're Afro-Latinos or if you have mixed status families. Those are the things that really scare them. So I think, the change is happening piecemeal. There are people trying to retroactively undo the harms of the war on drugs. There are other people trying to make sure that the people that are not in jail actually have a foot into the industry that's forming right now. And those are two different projects.
Right.
So our team is all QPOC. Am I the only Spanish-speaking one? Right? No, I'm not. But we're not all Latinos. We're like a mixed bag of brown New Yorkers. I have been wanting to start creating content specifically for Latinos for that very same reason, because their relationship tends to be really fraught. Or it's a relationship that's simply about recreational consumption.
Right.
Which is fine, but I think that there's so much more information and utility that could be used out of it for people who can't afford to engage with, the traditional healthcare apparatus.
Absolutely, yeah, and I will never forget the moment. So I went to Colorado like the week after all the shops had opened officially and everything was going on, and I remember, and it was actually unintentional. Like the trip was for something else, but the timing was like just right. And I remember sort of like walking into the shop, and it was a really surreal experience to see, very curated, like, behind the glass. It was so pretty in there, and like everything was so bright, and I was just like, wow, like what normalization. It was such a shock to see it in such a like just normal, like, matter of fact, you give your ID, they're like, great, you're old enough to be in here, awesome, come on in, like everybody's chill. Good.
Did you spend a lot of money?
I did spend a lot of money.
Was it
that
expensive?
first time. It was expensive, and then the tax, I forget what the tax percentage was, but the tax percentage was high. But I do remember that so I bought an eighth, and the eighth was a lot cheaper like before tax than in New York. So I was like lit. But then after taxes it was about the same. But then I wasn't mad because I was like, all right, well, it's not like I'm paying more than I would usually pay for bud. It's just that the tax portion, it's really gonna kill the price point. But, since that moment, like, I've seen and read articles around how Colorado has been able to, repurpose those tax dollars and really and you'll be driving and it'll be like this highway sponsored by Green, I forget the name of the company.
By weed.
Right, and it's just like all of these like different weed companies that are like doing shit, and like in the education system, there's money that's going from the marijuana industry straight to our education system, and it's like kind of like, yeah, man, just let people fucking smoke their weed, whether medical or recreational. Like definitely let's have conversations about responsibility and stuff, especially if we have like young kids like who are smoking and who might not be doing it responsibly.
Yeah.
But also like then let's also not just demonize it, and let's have these conversations with all of the generations, because like you said, I do think there's a way in which there's a missed opportunity on how we can utilize marijuana past just saying, oh, I love being stoned. Like, or I want to do this high, I want to do that high. Like, it's more than just being high, but we never really had a chance or a sort of like age of opportunity to really dig into those sectors. So it's exciting. It's really exciting for me. Speaking of all of this, legalization. So what are, like, you know, we talked a little bit about Bernie Sanders talking about how he wants to legalize it in all 50 states. What are some of the things that could come out of this that will be great? And what are some of the ways in which this might affect communities who are currently operating sort of outside of a legal realm of dealing marijuana, growing, or being in that space?
Yeah, I mean, anybody that works in a black market around a commodity that is about to be legalized, I try to be realistic about what people in power want and who they actually want to include. A lot of people are going to be left out. If you're in the black market and you're not preparing, you haven't tried to switch your business model from a black market model into one that can actually be an above board business, it's not going to work out for you. If you don't know the people that are making the laws, it's probably not going to work out for you if you're expecting to get distribution licenses, things like that. That said, there are people like black and brown folks that are doing that work, and I think that they have a really good chance to be represented in New York in the licensing landscape once that hits. However, the way rec has been deployed in California and Chicago has been a mess on other fronts, and that's why New York has sort of dragged their feet because they haven't tried to figure out like the tax regime with the social equity stuff, with the licensing stuff. It's a lot of different moving pieces in the largest marketplace in the world.
Yeah.
So it's gonna be like an avalanche of opportunity. I can't say with any confidence what's gonna happen.
Right.
Again, because it's an election year. It's probably
So
some
we don't
crazy
know.
shit. It's gonna probably be some crazy shit. But I imagine that Cuomo, at least in New York State, will be provisioning for a commercial market in New York at some point this year. Probably April, I think, is when it is. But even if that happens, that doesn't mean that we're going to have dispensaries until like January 2021 or something like that.
Right. Which is similar to what happened to, you know, when it happened in Washington and Colorado. It wasn't like the day it was ready, everybody was like, doors open, let's go. Like it was a process.
But what's cool now is you have like this liminal gray area space where not just us, but there are people in New York now really playing with programming right now.
Yeah.
Like before there's a regulatory framework, people are doing some really cool shit with consumption programming that doesn't necessarily have an event geared around like the consumption of alcohol, which is like what most of New York does anyway.
Right. And I wonder about, like, even when talking about the taxes, I'm like, damn, like, I think about the dealers I know, and I'm like, damn, I hope Brody makes it. Like, I hope that, you know, if this happens, like, he'll be good, because, like, you know, I buy from him because I'm trying to hold him down. I know his situation.
Yeah,
you know?
Tell your boy, take another look at your margins, boo.
Yeah. And so, like, what are some of the, like key tips around, like, if someone's like, I hear you, Zulai, I'm going to get serious, so what I got to do now? Getting serious about really shaping their space in the industry.
It depends what they want to do.
Let's say if I live in the South Bronx and I want to open, I guess, maybe a dispensary, or even better, I see a lot of people who do edibles via Instagram, like, you know, and they have like these, and like, so what are the licenses? You said something about distribution licenses. What are the different pieces outside of like, okay, you get a brick and mortar and like the process of that?
So, yeah, I mean, that's the other fun thing where you have like the emerging technologies of Silicon Valley being merged with like an emerging industry of cannabis, and they're both evolving at a really rapid pace. You're gonna see dispensaries, you're gonna see delivery services, you're gonna see fucking vending machines.
I was wondering. I was like,
vending
we're
machines.
vending.
You're probably gonna see like really curated things, kind of like Cafe Amsterdam style.
Yes.
Yeah, because I think Quo was searching around to find places to give them consumption licenses. I imagine it'll look something like a cigar bar or something like that.
Right, yeah.
Or a hookah bar.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Listen.
Or even just maybe even licenses to hold events. Wouldn't even necessarily be married to a specific space. Then there are like other practitioners that'll be allowed to work with cannabis but aren't necessarily purveyors. I think that'll probably be the biggest opportunity for people here, just because opening a dispensary in New York is going to cost you millions of dollars.
Yeah.
Nobody small is going to be able to do that in New York. It's just not.
Yeah.
That's just not it. And then after that, it's all like ancillary industries, branding, graphic design, marketing, original content, things like that.
Right. That'll.
It's the cultural aspect part.
Yeah.
Where there will be the biggest opportunity, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so dope. And like I do think like it's speaking to sort of like the branding of it. What I do love about the way people can sort of own their niches around the marijuana space is like, yeah, there's like there's an IG account that I follow that's like for women who smoke, right? Is what it's called, right? And so like even just sometimes seeing a picture of a dope ass chick like smoking a joint, like there's something about it because it, like I said, at least in my experience, it still is so demonized that, you know, it makes it sort of like taboo in a way, but also like I want to sort of be able to prove, as you said, like, yo, I can still be the incredible successful person I am and do this. In fact, like whoever listens to this, there's probably a lot of people who are going to find out for the first time that I even smoke weed right now. Really? Like, you know what I mean? Yeah. And this is something that I felt like I couldn't talk about ever, and worrying about like losing jobs and stuff like that. And it is just such an unnecessary thing. This is what keeps me sane. You like Julissa, you like functional, productive, creative Julissa. I need to smoke a joint every once in a while.
Yeah, people get surprised when they find out that stoners are productive.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think one of my favorite things is when you're in like a room of people, or you're introducing yourself to a new group and you don't know yet, but you always find the stoner. And I don't know what that magic is, but there's always a moment where like, I feel like there's an energy where you're both sort of like dancing around each other. It's like your spirits are like, pot buddy, and you're like around, and then you have that first like L with them or however the fuck you smoke. And it's just such a like bonding moment. And I think that the culture around, you know, potheads, like it is stigmatized. There's a lot of stereotypes, but at the core of it, I think are just really chill people who just want to just like chill, like that's all it is.
Yeah, I mean, as a brown queer, I'm way into weed bonding more than trauma bonding.
Yes.
So.
I love it. All right, Zulai. So, any shout outs and where can we find you online?
Well, you can find us on Instagram at medley.ny. That's medly.ny. Who do I want to shout out? Oh my goodness.
Your team?
Yeah, shout out to my team. I want to shout out Danielle, who runs Highlights. Nice. Natasha, who runs Pussy Weed, another really good cannabis-related lifestyle brand.
Pussy.
I feel like I'm winning an award. I should have
prepared some notes.
But yeah, no, follow us on Instagram. We're always trying to amplify the people that we work with. So if you really want to get the info on the cannabis scene in New York, just follow our page for sure.
And that's medly.ny.
Yeah.
And Skittles, where can they find us?
And you can find us at Ladies Who Brunche on Instagram, at Ladies Brunche on Twitter, and on all your favorite podcast streaming platforms.
All right. And thank you so much for tuning in this
Thanks for
episode.
having me.
Until next time, guys, bronche.
Bronche.
Bronche, that's how we say brunch.
Here's to the ladies who say basic with their lunch.
Yo anda bochinche.
Paquete con pinche, you hear what they said?
Now su busy glasses clinking.
Aquí en esta mesa se respeta como ñón.
Si la copa está llena, yo te doy la bendición.
So what if we get ratchet?
We from the Bronx.
That's it.
Don't get it twisted.
We be going to Manhattan. Be a queen.
Be a boss.
Ladies who brunch and poppin' off.
Hey, we pop